Today's episode of 2A for Today is an interview that I had on Freedom's Pep Rally with Jon James. We talked the Second Amendment, natural rights, the Bible, and we even had a back and forth with some progressives in the comments section. It was a great time. Welcome to 2A for Today.
They say I'm part of a global plan. I don't think so. It's too hot, it's too cold. You know what? The weather changes.
Here's the news, Dad.
Nope. It's hard to tell what's real and what's fake these days.
Ditch the fake news and always get the truth. Go to thenewamerican.com.
Now, you're a Second Amendment lover. You're a 2A supporter, big time.
Yeah, I'm a gun rights advocate. Like, I thank God for the Second Amendment.
Yep.
And, you know, I think that oftentimes we look at it through the wrong lens. Like, our rights don't come from the law. They don't even come from the Constitution.
Right.
Our rights existed before the Constitution. I mean, our Declaration of Independence, they just pointed to these rights are self-evident. I mean, this isn't like something we're making up here. This isn't an experiment we're trying to put on reality. Reality is telling us and dictating to us how things should be, and we should just submit to the reality and stop going against the flow of God and realize that this is how things should operate. And so the Second Amendment is it just expresses that we recognize that this God-given right is necessary and it needs to be protected from infringement. So I'm a big time fan of that, of our founders writing that down for us. So it's in stone. I can always point to that in the law. Look, we don't need to argue this. I can go to the Ninth Amendment and say I got rights that aren't written in this thing. However, there are some that are explicitly stated. So there's no question about those. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, they like to make you think there are. They cause people to question that. In fact, right now I don't know where we are. I haven't followed the legislation that closely. They are trying to get rid of pistol braces. They try to get rid of assault weapons, which we know isn't just the AR-15. It's a whole long list of rifles, many of them used for hunting. They don't tell you that, though. They just single out the evil-looking rifle. They've tried to get rid of, and I don't know where the litigation on this stands or if it's still being litigated, the bump stocks. I mean, all of these things, we can't, and they keep, I don't know if you heard, it was Fox News, and sometimes the idiocy that comes from there makes me laugh. Geraldo Rivera was talking with Greg Gutfeld on the 5, and Geraldo said that, well, the AR-15, people shouldn't be allowed to own the AR-15. And Gutfeld said, well, why not? Well, because it's a machine gun. And Gutfeld, who I don't think knows what AR stands for anyway, but he said, do you know what AR stands for to Geraldo? Geraldo said, yeah, automatic rifle.
At least he didn't say assault.
Yeah, we might as well say assault, right? And so this idiocy is permeating the brains of, and those who are fighting hardest to take away our Second Amendment rights, though, are people who know nothing about guns. They really don't. Michael Bloomberg was schooled by a female reporter one time when he was talking about, what does an AR-15 do? Well, it goes brrr. I know, Michael, gun god, it doesn't. Yeah. These people are, I don't want to use the word idiots, but I'm going to, because that's what they are. And they're trying to tell us what we can and cannot own for guns. And we know that's incrementally just trying to take them away from us altogether, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, remember Jerry Wayne, the millwright that Joe Biden accosted? Yeah. I mean, the guy's like just challenging Joe. And he's like, I don't work for you. And we're all like, duh,
Yeah.
We know what you work for. But he goes on, you don't need an AR-14. And so Jerry Wayne went ahead and made one,
Yeah.
Which I think is great. I think the designation already existed anyway. But I'm thankful they haven't gone after the AR-10 because that's my favorite. So the
AR-10, I own an AR-10, actually. I've got a 308. I love that. It's a Ruger precision rifle.
Nice. Very
beautiful
nice
gun. Yeah. But they want to take all those.
Yeah, absolutely. And rifles are used the least. I mean, as far as all the the choice things that people use to kill people. I think we might have assault hammers because they're shaped like
Right.
tactical hammers.
Yep.
They'll be banned next because they actually are. I think people are killed more by hammers than they are by rifles.
Yes.
The reality is that they're just doing whatever they can to try to prevent the American people from being secure so they can grow a larger security state. It has nothing to do
Yes.
with gun rights, really. It has to do with growth of the state. They recognize that if we're able to defend and protect ourselves, if we begin to self-govern like we're supposed to, then
Right.
there's no use for them. They have to be useful. So the only way they can be useful is for us to have need of them. We don't have need of them. And so they try to damage our seeds, tax our water. I mean, they want rainwater runoff to be taxed, and they want to take away our ability to self-govern. Because if you don't self-govern, you cannot have limited government. And so they
That's
want
right.
to grow government
Right.
by reducing our ability to self-govern.
Well, just hired 87,000 IRS agents. I mean, before you know it, I mean, there are going to be more people working for the federal government than not. I mean, how long before we're all working for some branch of the federal government? And I mean, seriously, my wife works for the federal government. She works for the VA. She takes care of our veterans.
Yeah.
But those are necessary jobs. But how many unnecessary jobs? You know, the thing that I always laugh at, Zoe, is whenever there's the threat of a government shutdown because they can't raise the spending limit, they say, well, all unnecessary workers are going to be, laid out. There's going to be like 2 million or 3 million unnecessary workers who are going to be laid off for a time. And I'm thinking, well, that's the problem. We have 2 to 3 million unnecessary workers. What does that say about us?
Right. I mean, I keep hearing people say stuff to the effect of nobody's coming for your legally owned guns. I even saw a comment in the section here. And before I go to that one, I want to, listen, our founders, they weren't all believers. You don't have to be a believer to participate in the American Republic. That's not
Right.
The reality is, though, that they recognized there was a creator and nature, good moral people and religious people, don't trespass each other. They're not trying to take and steal from each other. They're not raping your daughters. They're not trying to steal from your grandmother when she's sleeping. They're not breaking in your home and invading your life. They don't trespass you. So good, moral, religious people, if they didn't have a government structure, then these are liberties that they would live with, and they would be protected by people from people who would do those things to them. And so we want to make sure we can protect good, moral, religious, free people to be free and have these things that will also keep them safe. Because you know what? The government has said on 7 occasions that the Supreme Court, that the police have no obligation to protect anyone not in their custody. So who then is supposed to protect me at the end of the day? Me.
Right.
And so when they talk about nobody's coming for you legally, whatever guns, Pritzker, P. Diddy in Illinois is pushing legislation and they're fighting for it that would prevent me from having a rifle. Listen, you may not be reasonable to you to have a rifle that can, hold more than 10 rounds. But if a mob of people came to my house, to harm my family, an AR-15 is sufficient. Okay. And matter of fact, it's not only reasonable to me, an AR-10 is more reasonable because I love a heavy rifle. Right. And so nobody gets to determine what is a reasonable thing for me to be safe in my domain. I'm a king in my kingdom. Okay. And I got a bunch of kings that live around me, and we all arm in arm are defending our realm. And so if you don't have any say to come into my domain and demand anything, okay? Even the disciples, they had Jesus said, go get your sword, right? He wasn't saying so you can go and fight the government, but he was really saying that the reality is that in this world you live in, people don't have faith, okay? There are people that are going to come after you. The disciples scattered when Jesus was he was smacked. He said the shepherd will be smacked and the sheep will scatter, right? The reality is that the founders of this country recognized that the 2 most important things we have are the right to speech, and the right to bear arms. And so if you look at the reality of the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, you're looking at even God's commands made into a covenant with the people. We're going to protect your right to preach, to have church, to assemble, to print a Bible, because you know what, overseas, they were actually putting people in jail for printing Bibles.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they want to put people in jail today for speaking the Bible at schools.
They do. Yes, they do. They do.
So the reality is that First and Second Amendment, the Second Amendment is defending your neighbor, loving your neighbor as yourself. If I'm having to sit and watch my neighbor be raped by someone because I can't stop them, I got to call the police.
Right.
And it's going to take the police how many times while my next door neighbor is being pinned down and shot? That's violence against my conscience.
Yes.
Because I'm the kind of person, I'm going to go rescue them. I will spend the night in jail for rescuing them.
Yeah.
I will give my life to protect my
Absolutely.
neighbor because I love my neighbor as myself. And so the founders wanted to make sure that no one who has a good moral and religious conscience was prohibited from doing what they would do naturally as good moral religious people. It has nothing to do with necessarily which God, as much as it has to do with that the God who created all this and gave us natural rights. These are things that would happen if there was no government and good and moral religious people were able to protect themselves. So let's protect their ability to do that, to self-govern. And then we can have limited government. So anyway, so I was looking at some of the comments. I just kind of want to respond to some of that.
I love that. I think I want to address a few of them here. This Sigrid, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, sir or ma'am. I'm not sure which, because there are a picture of two people on the photo. Why would a born-again Christian need a gun? Jesus then have a gun. Okay. First of all, born again Christian, it doesn't matter. We live in an imperfect world, and the imperfect world, if you understand the Bible, began way back upon man's creation. So we live in an imperfect world. God gives us free will over our own lives. And unfortunately, we get to make bad choices and good choices. Those who make bad choices will attack those who make good choices, regardless of whether or not they live a righteous life or the best nobody lives a righteous life, but the best they can. So I mean, this poor narrative, Matt says, gun is not in the Bible. Well, neither is hammer, neither is, I mean, you could go on. These people try to they just try to shoot holes in everything. Do you want to address some of this?
I would love to. I would love to. I love the idea that, why would a born-again Christian need a gun? I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Alaska or the Serengeti or any place where wild animals will come out of the woods and eat you. But Jesus was not saying you should not carry something to defend yourself and be devoured by wild beasts, even if that wild beast is a human. Okay? The reality is that he was telling his disciples at the time, this is going to happen to me. I'm telling you it's going to happen. You don't believe me. I'm a prophet. They're going to come do this to me and put me on the cross. You don't need to stop that. Matter of fact, you trying to stop it means you're following hell itself.
Right.
Satan has entered into you. And even though you just said I'm the son of God, Peter, you trying to stop me from going to the cross is Satan. Okay? So taking up a sword to stop what I've just prophesied is Satan. And you need to back off of that. But in Romans 13, Paul, who also is an apostle, okay, he's also one who's given us an understanding and revelation. God spoke through him. Paul said in Romans 13 that his ministers bear the sword. And he wasn't talking about the heathen forever and ever, amen. Who better than a just person to bear the sword? Imagine if it was the local youth pastor that pulled over George Floyd. Now, I'm not saying that George Floyd would have survived. He had enough fentanyl in him to kill a horse.
Yes, he did.
However, his last few minutes probably would have looked different because the guy who was kneeling on him would not have been kneeling on him like that when he was calling for his mama. Because for me, the local youth pastor would have turned him on his side. Brother, we got you some help coming. All right, here's some water. See, loving your neighbor as yourself makes you behave differently, even if you have a sword. Okay? Paul wasn't talking about the Holy Bible or the Spirit. Paul was talking about you going up against the government and they bear the sword to punish evildoers. And so you will reap damnation from this person who will be acting as God's avenger on evildoers. if you do that, because they are doing their job. Now, if they are unjust and they're doing evil things, then they are illegitimate. But if they are doing the just thing and you're doing evil's pretty obvious, it's trespassing other people, then you deserve the sword that you get. It's your comeuppance, okay? If you are violating somebody and trying to rob their wives, their mothers, rape their daughters, you deserve the sword, period. And his ministers are the best people to carry it. Who better than a just person to bear the sword? Who better than a just person to judge? 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 2. Don't you know the saints will judge the world? Psalm 125, 3. The scepter of wickedness shall not depart from the land of the righteous. Who better than the just to bear the scepter? I mean, so I mean, we can argue what the Bible says and didn't say and what your interpretation of it is. Right. But the reality is that Paul looked at reality and he says, God is going to do this because this is the reality. It's his ministers. Government is his idea. And if you reject and resist people who have been given the power to punish evildoers by doing evil, you're gonna experience the sword. And that sword at the time, I mean, you ask, why is there no gun in the Bible? There were slings. Okay. Now, maybe there was no high capacity batch satchels.
David killed Goliath.
Yeah. So the key here is that Christian nationalism, all of that stuff, it's all just bloviating obfuscation of truth. It's like calling somebody a conspiracy theorist. The CIA came up with these terms to try to dismiss and marginalize people. There is no other country in the world where good people are going to protect evil people and give them rights, except for where Christians are. I want you to talk this nonsense someplace where there are no Christians. You won't, not very long. Christians are the only ones protecting your right to be a fool and say stupid things. And so the idea that there is a Christian nationalism that is a threat, it's not a threat. The threat are heathens, people who will want to groom your children for sexual things. The evil is people who are trying to actually kill babies in the womb. Right. The most vulnerable people in the world, I mean, I can go on, but this program wasn't about that. The program is really about the fact that you have the ability, the right, and our founders made sure they enshrined it and they wrote about it. Even Alexander Hamilton says that the best we can ask is that all the people be sufficiently armed. And he said, because when their representatives fail them, okay, when the representatives fail the constituents, then they have the recourse of that first right to self-defense, period. And so our founders, maybe they weren't all Christians, but they had an idea that liberty was the preeminent thing. And our God says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And the whole creation is yearning in eager expectation for the sons of God, those just people, to manifest so it can be liberated from corruption and enter into the glorious liberty of the sons of God. So liberty is a big deal to God. And I think our founders, they recognize that. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, they did. And we were founded on the Judeo-Christian ethic. There's really no argument there. People don't want to believe it. They don't want to know it. And that's why they are saying the Constitution, Nancy Pelosi, I believe. Hold on, this stupid chair keeps going down here. Nancy Pelosi famously said that the Constitution is out of date. It's an antiquated document. They don't like the Constitution. The left, the progressives, run roughshod over the Constitution. They don't even acknowledge it when they make decisions, when they do things. They don't care about it when they make gun control when they make gun control laws, when they silence free speech, when the FBI and CIA go to Facebook and Twitter and they say, okay, you've got to suppress this stuff because we don't want it to get out. It might cause Joe to lose the election. This is running roughshod over the Constitution, the First and the Second Amendments, right? And more, probably.
Lawlessness, bro.
You're lawless, yes.
And that's the key, like that. I mean, if we're talking about, the Second Amendment, we're really talking about a group of people who were making policies from a mindset of Judeo-Christian law to be able to govern people that some of them didn't believe in God. And so they wanted to make sure, and maybe to their detriment, that people who did not believe in God were also protected to be able to do whatever, to Because if they were moral, then this place is for you. You live freely, right? But there is no way, there has never been any evidence that the people who believe will be protected by the heathen. Okay? The people who believe would eventually be persecuted. They would be label lynched. They would call them names, call them whatever, and then they would eventually kill them and get rid of them because they were an impediment to the people just fully, doing whatever they wanted to do with children and the elderly. And so they were an impediment because of the way they lived. And so they would get rid of them. And then that nation would eventually fall. And so our founders wanted to make sure that they produced something that wouldn't fall. I mean, we don't want the nation to collapse. And if you look at the Democrat hellholes where lawlessness is rampant, where they violate the separation of powers, like our government's supposed to be slow. It's supposed to be not as efficient. Inefficiency in our government is purposeful. It's an impediment to despotism. It slows tyranny down because justice happens really slow. Ask any Negro. I'm black. My family been black. I've been black my whole life, right? I got my dad, my mom, my uncles. They all black. All right. And they lived through a time where justice moved terribly slow for them. But tyranny could happen real fast by people who would just trespass the law, disregard constitutional rights, disregard individual liberty, disregard their God-given right to keep and bear arms, okay, and then trespass them. And justice would happen so slow that people would be dead before they got any justice. So justice delayed is justice denied, right? So they wanted, they just wanted to slow tyranny down to the speed of justice. So,
well, you see the big shift going on now. All of this. All of the stuff we consider evil, and it is, and there are people on here who don't consider, and that's fine. You're welcome here. You are, and everybody's welcome to their own opinion. But there are people who consider abortion not evil. They consider the many things that are going on, gun control not evil. They consider the silencing of free speech not evil. They consider drag shows for 6-year-olds and grooming of 5 and 6-year-olds and older and
chemical castration.
They consider that not evil, and that is moving at a rabbit's pace. Meanwhile, you have people January 6 who did no harm, who did nothing illegal. Many of them still rotting in jail, waiting for a day in court. This is the big shift is happening here, and it's pervasive, and it befuddles me how so many people are letting it happen with their heads buried in the sand and deny there's anything wrong. All they've got to complain about is, well, you're transphobic or you're an homosexual. I get called that a lot.
Yeah.
Like this, when they're much more, the Chinese spy balloon, they just want to, they're minimizing that. And they're more worried about climate change.
It's Bill Maher, who I don't listen to really, but somebody sent me a link, and he made a very salient point. He said that I have been arguing with people that call climate change a theory for, decades. But now I have people on my side arguing that biology is just a theory.
Right.
Listen, to most of the people on the opposite side, we find that hypocrisy to them doesn't matter. It's just strategy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be a very good sounding argument that can appeal to the emotions because they understand something that most conservatives don't. Listen, most of our progressive friends are smarter in certain ways because even Jesus said to be as wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove, right? They understand human nature. And so they understand if they can make an argument that appeals to the baser nature of men and to a carnal reaction, okay, that by doing so, they can provoke what looks like a popular movement, even if it's not, because people will be emotionally bought in. Once people get emotionally bought in, it's hard to turn them around. Like for instance, if you really think somebody's cheating on you, as being unfaithful to you, even if they're not, you're qualifying everything they do.
Yep.
to be unfaithfulness, a slip of paper, a phone call. Oh, they must be cheating. Oh, they must be cheating. And you're pushing them away from you and making them feel uncomfortable being around you to the point that they may leave. Okay. The same thing happens with racism. If you think everything is race based and you're race obsessed, even if somebody doesn't answer you quickly enough at the register, oh, they must be racist. No, maybe they just lost their parents. And I mean, we don't know. I made that assumption at a point in time. But anyway, the lady turned out not to be racist. We are really good friends today. And so the reality is that if we allow our opponents to dictate a narrative and we respond to that narrative in a way that does not just refute it and move on and then state what we believe in, that their narrative is able to maintain dominance, even if it's stupid, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's just hypocritical. I mean, racism is evil, but so is reverse racism. Just because somebody has the majority doesn't mean that they're the racist and you're not because you're the minority.
Amen.
Some of my families are the most racist. Some of my family members are some of the most racist people I ever heard speak. Their white friends wouldn't even be able to sit in a room and listen to them talk.
Yeah. Well, I look at our media, our journalists, which I put in air quotes because their heads are full of air. I look at raging racist Joy Reid. I look at Whoopi Goldberg. I look at Sonny Hostin. I look at Joy Behar. The two joys that bring no joy. They are as racist can be. And everything is racist. Everything is about race. And you've got Hannah Nicole Jones, I guess her name is. She's out there. You've got Ibram X. Kendi out there pushing anti-racism. Yeah. And they are doing the bidding of Satan, I guess. They are dividing us, and they are working for what can easily be construed as communists.
The means justify the ends justify the means. Excuse me.
Right.
And so they are operating in a racist way, calling any group something, and saying that they are something is it's bigotry. Okay, and if you're doing it in a race-based way, it is racism. Just because some university person changed the definition of racism in the most recent era doesn't mean it stopped being racist. Okay,
right.
These Marxists run the schools. So the reality is that
you're right.
That the idea. Okay, separation of church and state. I saw it kind of pop up in there, and most of our founders wanted to keep the state from dictating things to the church. That's why even today, churches do not have to be 501c3. They are exempt in some states from taxation. They're not even qualified to be taxed because they wanted to keep the state out of the church completely. They're not even just nonprofit. They don't even have to even sign up for that.
Right.
Because they wanted to keep the state out of the church completely.
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as the idea that, there should be some angst and anger about even what has happened in the past. I believe that our American experience, our story is a redemptive gift from God. I really do. There has been no other country in the history of the documented world where two people groups that looked exactly the same fought each other, killed people they went to school with, and did it over a bunch of pickaninnies that looked nothing like them. Okay, that's never happened. Number one. Number two, the first independent republic in the history of the documented world to abolish slavery did it here, and it was Vermont. And it happened in 1777. In 1776, they did the Declaration of Independence. 1777, less than a year later, Vermont's like, yeah, we like that. So they wrote it in, okay, first independent republic, we're not going to have slavery here. Now, things weren't perfect, but slavery was an institution that was millennia long. I mean, this generation of people that were challenged by it, they did the hard work of challenging it and ending it, okay, at least in their midst. And so back 1792, the first constitutional carry state, again, Vermont. Okay, they said, listen, you don't have a right to stop people from keeping and bearing arms. So for 200 years, they were the only state in their constitution that said, we can't even permit it. We're not going to give out permits.
Right.
Vermont doesn't even permit. You don't have to have a permit. You can keep and bear arms in Vermont with no permitting.
New
Because
New Hampshire and Maine, Zoe, are the same. We don't have to have it here in Maine either. You don't have to ask permission to exercise your Second Amendment right. Isn't that novel?
I mean,
Isn't that novel?
it's not a radical departure from reality, but
Right.
our opponents are making a radical departure from reality.
Yeah.
And that radical departure from reality, to them, it seems like something that will work. But you know what? I love history. And so as I read history, I notice the only people that have ever taken guns from people were despots.
Yeah.
Anybody who limited your ability to keep and bear arms were people who had evil intent.
Yeah.
Okay, and so
look how it's working in New Zealand. Look how gun control is working now in New Zealand.
yeah.
Wow.
That's right.
I want to. Could you address this question here? Matt asks. He's asked this before. I would like it from your perspective. What do you think of Confederate statues and Texas celebrating Confederate Day?
Well,
And Army base names.
I live in South Carolina. I grew up with sons of Confederate veterans. I mean, they were. I went to school with them. We started out playing in dirt together, having pine cone fights, and I mean, just teasing each other on the bus, playing together. It wasn't until I got into like middle school and high school that people started to make a distinction based on that idea that there was a Confederate history, and I should not be friends with them. I let it affect me for about 5 or 10 years. And then when I got out and I went in the military and I was surrounded by, again, sons of Confederate veterans,
Right.
people that I grew up with in the military together, okay, that had a respect for each other, and we would behave in a way that was fair, even though we had differences of opinion, right? To me, that's what America was all about. The idea that I had was that, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words won't hurt you, right? Well, today
Right.
we got a bunch of weak people that think words are violence.
Low T people.
And
Yes,
so-
sir.
I would say from my part, and this isn't for every black person. I don't speak for black people. I just speak for me. Right now, if I ran for office, because I went to school with these guys and we're still friends today, we still go and train together. We still do politics together. Sons of Confederate veterans would likely come out and help me door knock in my campaign for office because we're Americans and I respect them and I love them and they love me.
Amen.
People have this idea that just because it was like, I'll give you an example. General Lee, Robert E. Lee. I love the man. One of the most honorable men to ever walk the earth. I mean, the guy, not only did he do the honorable thing and fight for his state, because at the time his state was a nation, okay? After the war, he prevented us from descending into guerrilla warfare, which we probably would still be fighting pockets of Civil War aggression today if he didn't make that decision to help the Union try to heal. And so for me, looking at our country, trying to forgive and heal, and it didn't really work because, taxation without representation, they installed a lot of representatives here in my state at the time, and the people that they didn't like it. And so because of that, there was 100 years of angst. And so for me, I look at those statues and I think that, listen, the Confederate flag flying around and those statues means that we live in the freest country that's ever been, because there's never been a country in the history of the documented world again where the loser of any battle on the soil that the battle was fought could still fly their flags. That means we do live in the safest place with liberty and justice for all, okay? Because we're not punishing people for the things that they like. We're not punishing people for things that they want to remember and honor.
Absolutely.
If you want to punish people for that, that's what ISIS did. They went around destroying monuments to Christianity.
Yes, sir.
Okay? They went around destroying monuments to stuff. We got Abraham Lincoln upside down, destroyed by stupid Marxists, fueled by foolish ideas like we should get rid of all of our history, like the Chinese did, okay? The CCP, the Communist Party, Mao's party, they went around and they destroyed the four olds. They wanted to get rid of all your traditions and all. It's all stupid, okay? It's all stupid. And if you wanted to fly a flag of Hitler, you can do it. I don't care. I'm not going to weaponize the government against you to prevent you from doing it. That's the kind of stupid that we're trying to prevent here.
Thank you. Thank you. And I, for your sake, I want to let you know I just got a message from the network that said you had a hard out at 9:55 and we're over.
Sorry.
So no, it's not. It wasn't a hard out for me. I think it was for you. You probably have another interview, don't you?
I have a meeting at 10. I do, but that's okay because this is most important. We have people. I love having the discussion. I love when people are able to communicate. Right? There are places I can't go and have this conversation, but you allow people to come here that we don't agree with, that don't agree with us, to have the conversation. That is America to me.
That is.
This is the America that cannot happen at Marxist campuses around the country because they will keep conservative speakers from even coming. We don't want that here.
They do. They absolutely do. Yeah, they shut people out. They will not tolerate it. We see it all the time at college campuses across the United States, and it just never ends, and it gets worse and worse. I saw somebody mention Jim Crow. Well, you know, you got Joe Biden making Jim Crow great again, right? Jim Crow, the Jim Crow era had passed. It had all passed. We are not a racist country. I like nice people. I don't care what color anybody is or what ethnicity they are. I like nice people. Most of us Americans, most conservative Americans, again, we can't throw everybody into the group. Most conservative Americans are open-minded and don't care what color you are or what ethnicity you are. The Jim Crow era was different. Who's making it? Who's bringing it back? Joe Biden and his freak show, the regime, and the mainstream media. And yes, Joy Reid is a racist. She is a huge racist. Thank you for that, Casey.
That's right.
And
God bless you, brother. I do need to. I'm so honored that you would have me on the show. Thank you, and even all to the people who don't agree with us or whatever that in the comments and chats. Thank you for being willing to have the conversation.
Yes.
Thank you for showing up, man. This is a conversation we need to be having for everyone. And you guys have the courage to at least express your ideas, to challenge us, to let us challenge you. And that's what America's about, guys.
See, that's what that's what I say every day.
You've been watching 2A for Today. My name is Zoe. If your right to keep and bear arms is important to you, make sure to subscribe to the New American Magazine and get on the top daily headlines mailing list so that you get an email alert anytime that we upload a video or stream a live event. Thank you for watching 2A for Today.
Sophia paused before the door. It read, Department of Bidigital Convergence. Just inside was a new world, a better world, the one of everlasting life, of no pain, of no loss, of no problem. She entered the chamber and her surroundings changed. She saw around her an infinite field of waving golden grain surmounted by cloudless blue sky. The AI voice whispered gently in her mind, Welcome to the singularity. She couldn't see it and couldn't feel it, but her body had almost instantly been covered by a swarm of tiny gray multi-legged bots that melted through her clothes and into her skin. Not perceiving the nightmare, her eyes had already been consumed and the rest of her body was dissolving as the bots digested her flesh. She felt only a warmth suffusing her being. Drowsy, she drifted to sleep, and her last thought was one of panic. Would she ever wake? Could a nightmare vision like this be an outcome of the much-hyped transhumanist technological singularity? Enter the world of the future as illuminated by the experience of the past in Endgame, the new book by Dennis Barrett, the publisher of the New American Magazine, and find out how the disastrous COVID pandemic response fits with the technocratic elite's thirst to create a transhumanist utopia. Get Endgame from shopjbs.org with free shipping with code ENDSHIP, ENDSHIP. Or get Endgame and the Great Reset Collector's issue of the New American Magazine and get free shipping plus an additional 20% off both with code END20, END20.